Hi everyone, this is Steve for the Skywatch Media News Channel, and here is what's happening for the week of July 23rd. As you look to the sky this month, you may have noticed that the red planet has been growing bigger and brighter in the night sky. Mars is quickly approaching its opposition when Earth will be directly between the red planet and the Sun, in the closest approach in recorded history. Mars at opposition will occur in the late evening hours of July 26th and the early morning hours of July 27th. Due to the different orbits that Earth and Mars take around the Sun, they will not reach their closest point to each other until July 31st. However, the planet will appear around the same brightness on the night of opposition and the night that it is making its closest approach to Earth. The news of yet another close approach of Mars in 2018 is bewildering, because you may recall that just 15 years ago in 2003, the red planet made headlines when, according to astronomical calculations, it made its closest approach to the Earth in 60,000 years, which then sparked a series of rumors that the planet would appear as large as the moon in the night sky, which of course, never came to pass. So what's different about the movement of planets the past 15 years that contradicts what calculations are showing hasn't happened in the past 60,000 years? Something is obviously going on in our solar system that disputes what was previously being told. But if you believe the scientists, then you also believe that the peculiar opposition of the planets in recent years is perfectly normal, regardless of the fact that the historical data suggests otherwise. The Mars opposition of 2018 will remain visible throughout most of the remainder of this year, but there are other celestial events that will be happening virtually in unison with the approach of Mars. The longest lunar eclipse of this century will take place on July 27th, just prior to the closest approach of Mars. The event will last nearly 2 hours, and the moon will turn a spectacular red, unlike the appearance of previous lunar eclipses. The lunar event will be followed by the appearance of meteors on July 28th. All of these events, including the previous solar eclipse, are concurrent with the month of July of 2018. This lunar phenomenon, similar to previous ones, has a double meaning. For astronomers and stargazers, it is nothing more than an amazing and rare spectacle in the sky. And yet, for those who follow prophecy and end times beliefs, the event will have a much more concrete meaning, for it will accompany an ever-approaching end of days. If you consider the relentless earth pains and the sense of insecurity and fear among people today, it portends of secular and spiritual turmoil and the confrontation of humanity with the forces of nature, in which it seems that the world is closing in around us. Now, some will say that the blood moon theory means absolutely nothing, since the previous tetrad of blood eclipses have come and gone, and we're all still here. But for our spiritual friends, the book of Joel holds great meaning as interpreted through its passage, where the sun will turn to darkness and the moon into blood before the great and terrible day of the Lord. A similar passage in Revelation gives reference to the sixth seal, where the sun turns dark and the moon turns to blood. Astronomers will say that this is all a myth, that the red tinge that appears during the lunar eclipse is nothing more than the scattering of sunlight through the Earth's atmosphere, the same process that causes the reddening of the sun during sunset. The science that defines what our eye visualizes is defined by the dynamics of a celestial phenomenon. And yet, scholars admit that there is merit in the words of Scripture which foretell of great signs in the heavens during a time of conflict on the earth. So which interpretation will you follow, and which teaching best describes what you believe? In observing celestial events like the one happening on July 27th, it's important to distinguish between fact and speculation, and best determine the message that these events may portray by using one's common sense. Remember that prognosticators who declare a time frame for apocalyptic events are providing a false narrative. They are attempting to establish a foundation for fear and anxiety beyond what already exists in these troubled times. An unexplained anomaly occurred in Arctic Siberia on July 20th. The event was so baffling that locals were pleading with the media to explain what had happened. Remote communities in northeast Siberia near the Arctic Circle were mysteriously plunged into darkness for a period of several hours. In this part of the world, daylight is a 24-hour event for this time of the year. But something extremely unusual took place beginning at 11 o'clock in the morning, which lasted until 2 o'clock that afternoon. Total darkness fell upon communities for 3 hours as the air became heavy. But when the sun returned, some locals said they had found a thick layer of dust covering everything exposed to the elements. According to the report, water reservoirs turned a murky color, and lakes in the region turned black. The anomaly was reported in the extreme northern territory, but there were no reports of the cataclysm from other locales within Siberia. Now, locals immediately began asking questions as to why the day would suddenly turn to night. Did an unknown eclipse occur? Locals had noticed that the morning was cooler than it usually was for this time of the year. Did ash from wildfires that are raging in locations that are a considerable distance away somehow manage to cast a shadow over the northern districts of Siberia? It seems impractical, since the air over the northern territory was entirely still on the morning that the phenomena took place. There was no mention of the possibility of volcanic ash. Now, the closest volcanoes to the region where the anomaly was seen are located in the Kamchatka Peninsula, which is a distance of nearly 800 miles. But the belief that ash would only affect a handful of communities in Siberia seems unlikely. Here's what makes this phenomenon such an oddity, one that is not easily explained. The locals who were subject to this strange occurrence were required to use torches in order to see around them as the sky turned to night. So thick was the darkness that had descended upon them. Apparently, the bizarre darkness was more extensive than what was being reported. The territory that was impacted by the mysterious gloom was nearly the size of the country of Italy. The darkness had an eerie yellow tinge, which is associated with clouds of dust. Speculation on social media has turned to some fantastic possibilities. Messages are going around about a light flash registered by U.S. satellites, followed by an increase of radioactive levels and unusual activity of the military. One individual who had witnessed the event said that an immense cloud slowly approached as the sky continued to darken with a rich yellow undertone, unlike anything witnessed before. Residents who had lived in the remote regions for many years said they had never witnessed anything like this. The darkness was complete. I indicated that the locals had said that the air had seemed cooler as the sky darkened on the morning of the event. In fact, almost all the Arctic districts had reported a significant temperature drop. During the late evening and early morning before the event, the temperature had dropped to minus 4 degrees Celsius, or roughly 25 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, the July low average for this region is 57 degrees, which implies that the temperature had dropped more than 30 degrees prior to the dark sky event. No doubt something unprecedented took place over northern Siberia on July 20th. No one can say with any certainty as to what took place on that fearful day. There have been no clarifications from meteorologists, from defense officials, or from local authorities. No alert to notify residents of an unscheduled solar eclipse, and no word that a meteor or a significant celestial presence has suddenly appeared in the sky. Nothing was heard but silence. This is a story of an event of unusual magnitude. Something took place that science cannot explain or is unwilling to explain, with the belief by witnesses that a celestial event happened, which is conceived to be a sign of the latter days, where people of modest means living in remote locations witnessed the sky turn black for several hours. The anomaly happening just 1 week prior to the July 27th event that scientists are calling the greatest lunar eclipse of the century. Now, add this to the closest approach of Mars, the red planet, which is known as the Roman god of war in mythology, and you have what amounts to a trilogy of celestial occurrences in the month of July in the year 2018. So what is the significance of these events? Is there any connection between the Siberian phenomenon, the great lunar eclipse of July, and the closest approach of the red planet? Is it just a coincidence that all these events have come to pass in the month of July? Or is there a connection with the passages of Scripture which speak of the sky darkening and the moon turning to blood before that great and terrible day? It's easy to interject the belief that there is no connection between the teachings of science and what religion professes when determining the meaning of sky manifestations and celestial events. It's possible that a rational explanation for the Siberian phenomena will be forthcoming, but since it is still encloaked in mystery and wonderment, and therefore lacking scientific explanation, then there will remain a great deal of speculation requiring a more centrist viewpoint beyond one's faith in science or religion. My friends, lift your eyes to the sky and feel the earth below your feet, and know that there is a time and a place for all things. The knowledge that you gain today will remain with you for an eternity. Thanks for watching.